Hi everybody, how are you? We hope that you're well. I'd like to talk to you about something that we've been speaking quite a lot, and I have speaking about quite a lot, and about which I have a mandate from Mr. Miller to address, namely the expropriation without compensation. A couple of salient points. One of the things that we're most acutely aware of is how little this subject is being discussed. Now, you might say, oh, that's not true. In a report, there was something last week, and there was something in the Beals and what have you. We would say that there is a calculated effort to downplay this subject, and that these guys are only responding to the extent that they are forced to by the demands of their readership. And that if they ignored the whole thing altogether, they would expose themselves as traitors. And therefore, they're doing the bare minimum that they have to do to retain their credibility. And what we would use as evidence is a number of things, and I'll go through them sort of semi-randomly. Firstly, if this was an issue that appealed to Naspers, News 24, IOL Online, Times Live, and so on, something like a Bonang's Booty, then it would be on the front pages every day, and they would reiterate the core points of it all the time, which they're not doing. For example, we know from Dr. Anthea Jeffrey of the Institute of Race Relations that in the successful land claims, successful, it's very important to bear that word in mind, the successful land claims of the previous process, the willing buyer, willing seller process, in 92.7% of cases, successful cases, where the applicant has won, the claimant has won, he has succeeded, they then opted for the money in 92.7% of cases, ladies and gentlemen. They didn't want the land. The land wasn't so important after all. This is a damning statistic, which, if the media wanted to use, could use it day and night, day in and day out. And they could put much of this debate completely to bed. A similar example is, and I'll just look at my notes here. By the 17th of May 2017, Rolf Meyer's ITI, I think it's called In Transformation Initiative, that's what ITI stands for. His ITI NGO reported that 4,323 of the successfully claimed farms in the previous process had not been handed out. The government was sitting on them. 4,323. If this land thing was really such a crisis, so desperate that they had to lay their hands on every other farm they could see, why didn't they hand out those farms? Why was their excuse that there were ongoing disputes? Yeah, there may well be ongoing disputes. But if it is really such a severe crisis, how do you justify that 4,323 farms, out of a gross total, by the way, of about 45,000 commercial farming units in South Africa? So something like 10% is being sat on by the government and hasn't been handed out. It's these things, which they could talk about if they really wanted to, that we would say they are deliberately downplaying. I'll give you another example. Christo van der Rede, the adjunct uitvoerende hoof, I believe is his correct title, of Agri SA, wrote an editorial piece, an op-ed piece, in a report about 3 months ago, plus or minus, in which he spoke at length about why the Afrikaner Boervolk should be getting right behind Cyril Ramaphosa and everything that he's doing. Can you imagine the degree of treachery involved in that? Can you imagine being the deputy CEO of the national organization representing farmers' interests and saying to people in the middle of the land debate crisis, we should be backing the guy who wants to take it all from us? And not writing a piece that says, by the way, the land in the northwest, adjoining the northwest and on the west and in the south of Swaziland, to the south of Swaziland, the Pongola Strip, for example, was traded by Boer trackers with the then Swazi king, commercially traded, and was stolen from nobody. Why didn't that form the kernel of his article? Why is that not being mentioned over and over and over again, right at the forefront of this debate? Why are we being told to support what Cyril Ramaphosa is doing? On a similar subject, one of the very obvious questions that we should be bringing up is, how does the government propose to solve a national land crisis which concerns approximately 42 to 44 million black people, black African people who have been dispossessed of their land, supposedly, with 25 to 30,000 farms? It doesn't make any sense. You know, there are about 45,000 commercial farming units in South Africa, and those commercial farming units are being farmed by about 33,000 farmers. Nobody's exactly sure, and there are two concurrent land audits occurring right now, which will shed light on this subject. But we know that, give or take, plus or minus, there are about 45,000 commercial farming units. We know that from Alan Stianovsky of Absa Bank's Agribusiness Division. We know that there are about 33,000 farmers, and we know that about 25,000 of those 33,000 farmers are white farmers. So let's say that the white farmers, let's say that the black farmers each have only one commercial farming unit. Subtract 8,000 from 45,000 commercial farming units, and you get 37,000. How on earth can 37,000 white-owned farms satisfy the needs of, let's use a convenient number, 37 million people? It means that, to be fair and equitable, 1,000 people would have to be put on each farm. Now you might say, well, it just goes to show how stupid the ANC are and how stupid the government is. On the contrary, they're not. Please take it from me. They are not stupid people. Some of the finest minds in South Africa lie at the heart of the African National Congress, and more particularly, lie in the back corridors of the South African Communist Party. There are names that you seldom hear that provide the brightest, clearest, most cunning, shrewd thinking behind the operations of the South African Communist Party and its tripartite ally, the African National Congress. These are not idiots. They know, with all due respect, better than you and I do, that the maths doesn't work. You can't put 37 million supposedly dispossessed black African people onto 37,000 farms and hope that it's going to make any kind of sense. You can't even put 3.7 million, 100 people per farm. That's around about, plus or minus, give or take, 20 family units, nuclear family units. It's important that we think in nuclear family unit terms, because it's in nuclear family unit terms that we start to talk about school fees and all of the other practical costs of the people who must obtain a profit off the land in order to survive. 20 families or 5 people on a modern commercial farm, that's 19 families too many. 15 families too many at least. It just can't work. And they know it. But nobody's talking about it, particularly the mainstream media. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We hope that this has shed a little bit of light for you and will be helpful. I'd like to make one final point, which we'll do in a follow-up video in a short while. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. He can edit